Coming up on All About Android, it's me, Jason Howell. We've got WinTwit Dow and Ron Richards joining me I'm flanked on both sides with some TVs. Pretty used to it by now. We've got smartphones on the decline. At least that's according to the Q4 data from last year. OnePlus has a tablet and some foldables on the horizon, possibly happening this year. Definitely a Nothing Phone 2 happening this year. What is the difference exactly between Google News and this new Artifact app created by the people who created Instagram? J.R. Raphael reviews the Andi Smart Search Assistant, plus some really great feedback from you coming up next on All About Android.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is All About Android, episode 615, recorded Tuesday, January 31st, 2023. Flipping OnePlus. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Decisions. Don't let complexity block your company's growth. Decisions' no-code, rules-driven process automation software provides every tool needed to build custom workflows, empowering you to modernize legacy systems, ensure regulatory compliance, and renew the customer experience. Visit decisions.com/twit to learn how automating anything can change everything. And by Bitwarden. Get the password manager that offers a robust and cost-effective solution that can drastically increase your chances of staying safe online. Get started with a free trial of a Teams or Enterprise plan, or get started for free across all devices as an individual user at bitwarden.com/twit. Hello and welcome to All About Android, your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I am Ron Richards.
And I'm WinTwit Dow.
Yes, indeed. It's good to see you both this week.
I like the core group kind of, let's
Yeah,
say,
we had
like
done it
ending
a little
ending
bit.
the first month,
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. It's been a few episodes. Things have kind of been all over the map, so I figured why
we
not?
do have for our video viewers, Burke, if you can pull back to the wide shot, I think Win picked up on it as well.
Yeah,
We do have-
that's what I was.
Oh,
We do have a little bit of go to the wide shot. We do have a little bit of a
Little theme.
two reds and a black in the middle.
Yeah.
In fact, if you watch the pre-show, you were treated to a photo of Jason as a young preteen, and there it is.
Oh,
and he's
goodness.
wearing a red shirt
it's
with a black
true.
over it.
Wow,
Oh
look
my
at that.
goodness.
You're right. That's so interesting.
And now here we are, Win and I are red shirts flanking Jason's black shirt tonight. So audio listeners, go check out the YouTube link or the video link on twit.tv. You can see what we're talking about.
Totally planned.
Wait,
We did
We're
not.
red shirts?
Yeah, we did. Red shirts.
We're red shirts?
Oh God, are we
What's that?
red shirts?
no. We're not.
I'm not going.
we're
I'm not
wearing-
going to the planet. I'm not going down to that
I'm
planet.
not going to
You
the
can't
planet.
make me.
Nope, not it. Oh,
Wait, the
No.
engineers wore red shirts too, though. Not all of them died.
Not all. Right. Sure. Scotty was the best.
oh, I guess yeah. Oh, I can see. It was red shirts that went.
But a lot of
okay.
them died. Most of them.
That's not looking
let's
so
pa-
good
let's-
for you two.
let's-
For me,
let's
I'm okay.
Let's pause. Now that we've navigated to Star Trek, let's pause for a moment and give respect to the greatest moment of Star Trek and computers in history, Star Trek 4, when they go back to 1987 San Francisco, and Scotty sits in front of a Mac and holds up the mouse and says, "Computer," and starts talking to it like a microphone. So, there you go.
That's right. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the last time I saw that movie. It's been far too many years. Have either of you seen that particular
Oh, yeah.
movie recently?
I love
Sort
that
of
movie.
recently,
Is it good?
yeah.
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 Let's define
Hold up.
recently. Is recently within the last
Yeah.
10 years?
Sure.
Oh, last 2 years.
Well,
yes.
it certainly is for me.
Not in the last 2 years, but last 10 years, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
That is not recently.
Oh,
5
and
years?
We even have the animated GIF in the Club Twit Discord.
There it is.
So
Another
think
reason
5
to
is
join Club
better.
Twit.
there
Five
you
is
go.
better.
See, actually, we've got different versions of it in the Discord. That's amazing. That's all it
That's
takes.
iconic.
That's all it takes. Well, not only do we have random Star Trek factoids for you, we also happen to have Android news, Android hardware news, Android app news, an app recommendation by our good friend J.R.A. Feel, and Android feedback. See, we've got the whole 9 yards for you tonight. That's what we do here on All About Android. So why don't we also give you the Android news bumper courtesy of Burke?
And you also have me stumped on what to say about it.
Yeah.
Thank you, IDC.
Did you just say thank you, IDC?
That's what I said.
Sure. Just throw that out there. Sure. Let's see here. Okay, so what are you even talking about? Sometimes I don't know, but in this case I do. The last quarter of last year, apparently not so kind to the smartphone industry, because Burke's aforementioned IDC report published some numbers on worldwide smartphone sales for the fourth quarter of 2022, saw the largest ever quarterly decline in smartphone shipments. 18.33% drop in that quarter. The year saw an 11.3% decline. Also, the lowest annual shipment total since 2013, 1.21 billion phones for the year. Hard to put that in context because I don't have what the other numbers, like last year was, but just know that it's 11.3% decline there. Apple and Samsung down 14.9% and 15.6% respectively, but Xiaomi, which was one of the biggest manufacturers of the year, dropped a whopping 26.5%, so lost a quarter of what they had normally been doing in their business of shipping phones. Lost a quarter of that business last year. So I don't know. What is this? Just kind of like, oh, everybody's worried about the economy, and so that's what happens in a tight economy. People hold on to their phones a little bit longer. Or is this something different? Are people getting bored of smartphones? What do you guys think?
I think you touched on it a little bit with the economy aspect of it. We're seeing, I know in other aspects of business, not just consumer electronics, but like other things I do in my day job, stuff like that, there is a slowdown happening. The holidays were soft, like I think the last year with all the inflation brouhaha and what's going on just kind of with the markets and stuff like that. I think after a year of a rough financial year in 2022, it's starting to have an impact on just average people, and what their spending is. I don't know. I mean, it is for me and my family. I don't know how it is for you guys. Wynn, what do you think?
I can't imagine the same that it is, the economy and inflation. And I mean, as necessary as smartphones are today, I think most people will hesitate to buy a brand new smartphone just for the holidays when things have been going the way they are. And I think it's kind of interesting because we keep talking about manufacturers lengthening the terms of, support, like, from
Updates.
2 to 3 up to 4 to 5. Because it seems to be there's an appetite for not, and maybe probably independent of this, but not probably disconnected from this, is the desire to be able to keep your phone longer. I mean, I think naturally that's just a thing that people would like, to be able to not have to update every 2 years, as some of us enthusiasts might like, but I think the average person might feel a little differently. And I don't think that was driving this at all, but I kind of wonder also whether, in some small part there is something of this desire to hang on to phones longer, and maybe some boredom. Like another thing we always talk about is kind of like all the little kind of minute innovations or lack of innovations and things like that. So who knows? Maybe people are just given a good excuse to stop buying smartphones between like the actual legitimate problems of inflation in the economy, as well as not a lot huge is going on, at least that isn't a price range that people like.
Right.
Like we. I know, Ron, you love mid-range smartphones. The kind of most innovative things we've talked about are $2,000 foldable phones, which are absolutely, so I don't know. Maybe
out
a
of
lot
reach,
different things,
of reach of most people, especially those who would be deciding to not buy a new smartphone, sooner, maybe stretch that out. They're not, their next smartphone's probably not going to be a foldable, it's probably going to be, okay, what, through the deal with my carrier, what am I allowed to get? That's less expensive. But for as far as consumers are concerned, this might actually be good if you are nearing the time to upgrade, because in a time where these hardware manufacturers are having a harder time selling the hardware that they do have, you can imagine that you're going to be seeing more favorable trade-in values, like something, and actually we will put this to the test probably tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Pacific is Samsung's event to, announce the latest and greatest Galaxy S devices that they have in store. I'm actually doing live coverage here at Twit. I'm not sure if Leo is going to join me or not, but it's cool. Like, I've done him solo before. So tomorrow, Wednesday, February 1st, 10 a.m. Pacific, to see what Samsung's doing. But I bring that up because Samsung has, in the last couple of years, been really kind of pushing the envelope as far as the trade-in values for their previous phones and for phones outside of what they make, in order to get into their latest and greatest. You get high value for them, especially at launch. So I imagine we would see more of that, because these manufacturers, they still want to move their devices. Even if people aren't buying, they want to figure out some way to encourage them to, and that's one way they can do it.
I am curious. I know that we're not talking about Samsung here, but we're always talking about Samsung, aren't we?
Right.
I am very curious what tomorrow's event will be, given it's in person in San Francisco. Florence Ion, I think she's going to be there in person. So we'll hear from her what it'll be like. But again, I know we always make this joke, but I'm praying, like we've had the very middle of the road Samsung, just kind of like very slickly produced, but, pretty standard kind of rollout over the past couple of years. I want a theme. Honestly, we don't need Broadway again like we had, but just give me something else, to work with Samsung. But yeah,
they've been going the straight route recently, which has been good enough. I don't know. I was talking with Leo earlier, and we were just kind of talking about kind of like the excitement or lack thereof around events like Samsung's tomorrow. Once again, year after year after year, we already know everything. Like, it's all leaked. Like, at this point, it's just kind of like there's nothing new to be learned other than for things to be official instead of unofficial. And
do you remember
that's
when
really
we
what
didn't know? Do you remember back when it was like, oh my God, it's there was a point where, I don't know how the world got so leaky. It's weird.
It became
not sealing
because
enough.
Leaking became part of the marketing campaign.
Exactly. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. The snake started eating its own tail.
Yeah, they started, I'm sure, to realize that, oh, wow, a certain sector, the people who are really motivated to get the new device, right? Like Uber fans.
Also a cheap way
really care.
to advertise.
And cheap. Yes, a really good point. It's a really, really great way to get people excited early so that they have those launch numbers when they come out the door. But it makes things a lot less exciting on announcement day. It is what it is.
Is what it is.
Is what it is. Wynn, you've got the next one.
Yeah. So we've got some kind of continuing, I guess, bad news for Google. And this is in the vein of the continuing sagas, these kind of parallel lines that we have of this different news about user choice billing, about Google being the primary search and search, not just user billing choice, but user search choice. And this comes from India. And last week there was a pretty big ruling where the Indian Competition Commission of India has actually fined Google $161 million for basically restriction on manufacturing partners. And there's a whole antitrust ruling against Google in India. So part of the changes that Google is implementing in response to this kind of cross a lot of our kind of news streams, in a sense, with third-party billing being implemented, yes, as well as third-party search engine selection on device setup. So yes, in kind of continuing the current news zeitgeist of, hey, I can't think of a good phrase for this, but people are coming after Google, and Google's having to kind of change the way they do business and the way they operate a little bit. What I think is actually extra interesting on top of this, on top of user choice billing, on top of search engine selection, is also the fact that in India, Indian phone manufacturers will be able to basically a la carte include Google applications and bundle a la carte Google applications in phones. So what normally happens, and what probably a lot of us who have some kind of Android device, that isn't like an Amazon device or maybe even like some other device is that these devices are licensed using the Google mobile services, which is basically kind of like a bundle of, all of the kind of main Google apps that you think of when you think of a Android experience, like, Gmail and all these other things, along with the proprietary services like Google Play services. So this is kind of like, their way of ensuring a, some standard of Google experience, but it is bundling. It is making, it is kind of requiring manufacturers to have, a certain list of, standards of like hardware, but also like requiring that you have all of these different things if you want to be, like a GMS certified device. So now in India, you do not have to do that anymore. You can, as a manufacturer, you can choose what Google apps come pre-bundled on your device, which is kind of huge. And I think is for me a particularly interesting part of the story. But I don't know, like, what do y'all think? It's just like another good step, another, I don't know, maybe crumbling of the monolith that is Google with Android in regards to billing and all this other stuff. Is this a good thing?
Well, I mean, this on the heel. I mean, I'm sure Jason, you guys I haven't been listening lately to This Week in Google, but like, aren't they trying to break up Google? Isn't the DOJ trying to break up Google? Like, doesn't this seem like...
the ad.
Yeah, well, I mean, 100%. What we're seeing in India, what we're seeing in the EU, it's all happening here, albeit it seems like it's happening in slow motion by comparison. Right? The EU, India, they've been a lot more decisive about like, no, you know what? Boom, we're doing this. Here in the U.S., it's been this slow rumble, but it really seems like that's the direction that this is headed, and that's what I find kind of interesting about this news and what's going on in the EU is the changes that Google makes to satisfy in those countries. Will they inevitably, reach across the shores and end up over here at some point? And I kind of feel like why wouldn't they? If the U.S. has the same the same concerns with Google and its business as these other places, then why wouldn't Google just take the solution for those other places and move it over here? And what does that do to Android as a whole when that happens? Like, is the net effect positive or negative? I'm kind of like I think choice is good. So if people have the ability to choose a different payment method, great. If they have the ability to, if a user decides like, hey, Google's great and all, but I don't want that to be my default search, why shouldn't they have the ability to change that upon install? I mean, I guess they could do it still as an Android user, but I do think that the really interesting part here is what you point out, Wynn, is the detaching of these apps. And this has been something that has been critical and core to how Android has reached in, especially Google's version of Android has become what it's become over the years, is that Google says, well, hey, if you want to play ball, you have to install not one of our apps, you have to install the whole suite, and you have to abide by these rules in order to do so. That's how you play ball. And everybody's willing to play ball. And so, because they want those valuable apps. And things like this show that it is possible to detach those things. What does that do to Android and to Google's business as a whole? I don't know.
Yeah, we might have to all get comfortable with that other F word, fragmentation.
Well, yes, and I think that's Google's kind of resistance here, or how they're spinning this is like, hey, you wanted a less fragmented thing, so we made these decisions that say, hey, all this has to come with, because if it all comes with, then we've got a more stable ecosystem, which is, kind of what Apple does, right? Although they do it differently, but that's essentially what they do. And so Google's kind of like, well, it's okay. So now we're just going to have to get more used to a fragmented ecosystem once again. And yeah, that could be true.
I guess we'll have to wait and see how it goes. It is fascinating to me. And that's always kind of the interesting tension with like Google or Android as an open platform, but then also Android as a part of Google's business is this tension. And of course, yeah, obviously, as you said, the Apple iOS ecosystem benefits so well from that kind of walled garden, our way or the highway. And certainly there's advantages to that. So Google has had to stride this line, right, of like, we're open, but like y'all want like a really tight experience. So here, if you want the Google like sanctioned experience, here's all the things. But obviously, I mean, India is now the most populous country in the world. Is that right? Didn't they recently bypass China? And 97% of the smartphones in India are Android devices. So there's not really any not paying attention to that. There's not really any kind of conceivable way, I think, from a kind of logical and probably a business perspective that Google cannot have to adhere and bend and figure this out. And I guess we'll see what happens with the ecosystem.
We'll just have to wait and see. I love it when that's the end of the story.
I mean,
that happens so often on these shows.
Stay
tuned.
We were talking in the pre-show about sitcoms. We're just gonna have to wait and see, and then freeze,
Yes.
and then right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely gonna be an adventure for Google over these upcoming months, years. But I have a feeling it'll be fine. Microsoft survived it.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, it'll all be fine. So
Artificial
speaking of Google-
intelligence will save us all.
Exactly. Well, speaking of artificial intelligence and speaking of Google, this isn't necessarily Android, but it is super interesting and actually topical here. Google last week unveiled MusicLM, which is a generative AI that turns text prompts into music samples. Quote, the main soundtrack of an arcade game. It is fast-paced and upbeat with a catchy electric guitar riff. The music is repetitive and easy to remember, but with unexpected sounds like cymbal crashes or drum rolls. There are samples of that out there in the world that you can hear that. Another prompt was...
There it is. That's it. That's it. Play it.
Let's hear it, Burke.
Okay. Although turn it down because holy cow.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean,
It's a video game soundtrack. Totally. It's like Outrun. You're racing your car.
It's a little more fast paced, I think, than the writer intended. But,
Yeah.
Bart, can you cue up the second one? I'll read the description and then we'll play the second one. Epic soundtrack using orchestral instruments. The piece builds tension, creates a sense of urgency, and a cappella chorus singing in unison. It creates a sense of power and strength. That's a little more Yanni than I would think or want, you know? But it's making music. It's, you know, so like what I want to do now is, so Google says they have no plans to release its models at this stage, but I really want a user interface where we can do this. And what I can do is ask ChatGPT to write a description to give to MusicLM, right?
Oh my goodness.
Man.
Yeah.
It's AI feeding itself.
Exactly.
That is
What is this
definitely
one?
the ML eating its own tail.
This is the third one.
The R&B hip hop music piece. Are they
this
saying
is like a
actual words?
paragraph.
Are they saying actual words?
It's a good point. I think they're not. I think it might just sound like words.
Yeah, no, I don't think they are. I don't think those are real words.
Is there any chance it's a foreign language? That
Yeah, it
none
could
of
be a
us on
foreign
the panel
language.
speak?
It could be. Yeah, that's fascinating.
But
Yeah, I'd be curious to know. Like, is that a foreign language or is that just
Sounds
total
kinda Hindi a little
gobbledygook?
bit.
Yeah. Interesting.
fascinating.
Well, here we are. You write out some words, you get a fully realized song by computer. I mean, pretty impressive. It's not perfect, you know, but interesting nonetheless.
I mean, AI, and my thoughts on AI are complicated because I do think it's fascinating. I do think it's amazing. I saw a news article that real estate agents can't imagine life without ChatGPT now, which I find mind-blowing. That they're just, write a description of a house in San Francisco and it just does it. And then they copy and paste it.
Right. Because a
but
lot of those
there's-
agents have to write that copy themselves normally. and
Exactly.
Not all
And
of them are very good
writing's
writers.
hard. Writing's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
It is, yeah.
They get paid to do it.
in
Right, but
my-
that might not be their skill set.
Yeah. But also in my day job, I get to work with a lot of artists in the comic book world and things like that. And like the AI generated art is very controversial. And,
Oh,
like,
I'm sure. I know it is.
Somebody has
Yeah.
made a comic book based on entering in the script and the text into an AI and have the AI generate the artwork, and it looks like a comic book. It looks great. Like it's weird, man. We're definitely We're definitely getting somewhere soon.
We're going somewhere right now.
Maybe in our
We don't know
lifetime.
where we're going exactly, but we're going somewhere. It's obvious.
I thought we would have gotten to Mars before the singularity happened. That's what that was.
The singularity is what will get us to Mars. You'll see.
Apparently, someone said it's going to be within 7 years. So I'm just going to try to
Mars or singularity.
Singularity. So we might
cool.
hit. So I mean, I guess then we can just beam ourselves to Mars super fast or something. It's really interesting because like this is all, it's happening so fast, and there's all the ethical, legal, like all these other kind of like I'll call them loose ends, but that's not really the appropriate word to tie up. Especially as you said, like with AI generated art, like it's fascinating. They're good tools, but then we as human beings need to refine what are the bounds within which the use is okay. And hopefully we do it quickly before more genies, bad genies get popped out of bottles. Sorry, that's a reference to the pre-show. But, before we let too many genies out, and then, it's like a genie stampede and, who knows.
I have a related thing on this. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard of a place called ArtStation, but it's like a place where you can go to sort of view computer art, whatever it is, graphic arts that, graphic artists make.
Artstation.com.
Yeah, and you can buy art also there. And a lot of them, the profiles of a lot of the artists, they have like all this like anti-AI, like AI with a cross through it, like things. It's like a big deal, like a huge deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I can understand that for a community, right? Like if there's rails around a community to say, here is where the AI generated art goes, then because prior to that, if you went to artstation.com and you looked at all the art, you knew that you were on level playing field with everyone else that's there because you're all just an artist making art. But then once you introduce a computer into it, and it's this thing that takes 5 seconds with prompts and whatever, which is not to devalue the art that the computer makes, but it's just they're playing different games. One's playing soccer, the other's playing volleyball,
And
right?
also, artists have secret tools a lot of times that they don't share with everybody as to how they make the art.
That's
And
true.
it doesn't necessarily
That's true.
and it doesn't necessarily matter.
Yeah.
A lot of artists all the way back to the end of time.
It is interesting. We are heading somewhere, and I'm not certain we all know where we're heading exactly, but it's fascinating. I am really intrigued by it. The last couple of years have been really interesting.
Brave new world, that's for sure.
Yes,
So,
indeed.
we'll see.
All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we will hop into some hardware news. But first, this episode of All About Android is brought to you by Decisions. Decisions gives IT and business experts the tools to automate anything in your company. All within one no-code platform, actually. Decisions is proven to fix any business process and prepare you to withstand economic uncertainty. So, what we're talking about, recession resilience. It actually requires a deliberate management of resources and the flexibility to adapt at a moment's notice. You need to be able to adapt in a time of recession. The Decisions no-code environment makes it easy for your team to collaborate, to build and adjust workflows, dynamic forms, decisioning processes that fit your unique and ever-changing business needs. And it's just incredibly important with today's IT talent shortage, in fact. Decisions process automation software is a complete toolkit. It allows developers and business users alike to build applications and automations. No code required. Their no-code platform is powerful. It actually includes robust rules, workflow engines, a host of pre-built integrations that connect to any legacy system via API, all within a simple drag and drop visual interface design. And, if you want that implemented and deployed on-prem, great. If you want it in the cloud, excellent. You can do that as well. Companies, as we know and have talked about many times, very much so caught flat-footed at the onset of the pandemic. It really rushed to the forefront a lot of these challenges, right? But Decisions customers were fully equipped to respond. One of our country's largest private banks actually built an entire PPP loan application process for small businesses that were impacted by COVID-19. And all it took was 2 days. They were the first to market, issuing $1 billion in loans before their competitors even started. Decisions lets you customize workflows so you can automate the small decisions, producing faster results with greater accuracy. That allows your team to focus on the important decisions in your company. So you can scale your business to serve even better your customers while reducing operational costs and saving your team valuable time. And here's just one really great example of how decisions automation software can actually help. Otis Elevator, they implemented decisions to run daily pulse checks across their 2 million units operating globally by finding potential problems before they actually occur, which is hopefully what you're shooting for, finding these things before they actually occur. They avoid downtime and manage their service technicians efficiently in the process, right? They're getting ahead of the problem. So if you happen to be riding in an Otis Elevator, you can rest assured you're going to arrive safely to your destination. Now, as a recession approaches, the durability of a business's foundation is going to directly impact its performance and its ability to survive. So you got to ask yourself, how strong is your foundation? Well, Decisions Automation Platform provides the solution to any business challenge, automating anything and then changing everything to improve your company's speed to market, your company's financial growth, your operational success. And they help industry leaders alleviate bottlenecks and automate pain points in their business so you can do what you do best. And that's, changing the world ultimately. To learn more about Decisions no-code automation platform and scope your free proof of concept, all you got to do is visit decisions.com/twit. That's decisions, DECISIONS, decisions.com/twit. Check it out for yourself, and we thank Decisions for their support of All About Android. All right, let's get into some hardware news. We got a few things to talk about today. Oh, yes. And by the way, I passed on the Coca-Cola phone story. Just want to throw that out there. There is a phone branded Coca-Cola. That's all you really need to know. It's probably not a really great phone, but it has Coca-Cola on it. So if you like Coca-Cola, go nuts.
That's for you.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Mm-hmm. For the rest of us, there's OnePlus.
Well, I gotta say, so if I did not have this on my bingo card, but like going into 2023, I know I've been trying to push for the year of the tablet in previous years, but I think this is it. 2023 might be the year of the tablet.
It keeps happening.
It keeps happening.
One of these days you'll be right.
I thought he was going to say the Coca-Cola phone.
No, but we all know we're hotly anticipating the Pixel tablet coming from Google, but I did not have on my bingo card a OnePlus tablet. What? There's actually a lot going on with OnePlus, so let's sit down. We're going to buckle in and see what's going on. First up with OnePlus, before we get to the tablet, the OnePlus 11 will be unveiled in the U.S. on February 7th, but the company released a teaser image that shows a tablet form too. The quote-unquote OnePlus Pad, according to a tab on the OnePlus India page. OnLeaks also published some unofficial renders of the tablet. They say it will be an 11.6-inch tablet with metal unibody chassis. I'm intrigued. I am very, very intrigued. All right, we've talked about the OnePlus 11 already. I think it's an intriguing looking phone with the big round camera stuff on the back. OnePlus, I feel, has been like under the radar, kind of to the side of us saying, "Oh, they're boring now." Remember, like we haven't really been impressed by what they're doing,
Another
but here coming out with a tablet. So, but it doesn't stop there. A trademark listing through the China National Intellectual Property Administration now shows entries for the OnePlus V Flip and the OnePlus V Fold, which likely means similar foldables to Samsung's own foldable lineup. Internal testing has begun, so we shouldn't expect to see that at the February 7th event. But OnePlus, new phone, earbuds, tablet, foldables on the horizon. OnePlus, you talk about going into 2023, new year, new you.
Good
job.
job.
They ecosysteming. I'm going to make it out of verb.
Ecosysteming. Ecosystematizing.
There you go. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
There we go. So they got their own fold and their own flip. I mean, the names, if that's the names, if that's the name that they choose to release with, it's just a little kind of like, really, you can like anything, I don't know, a little more creative. But still, nonetheless, that's interesting. That's exciting. Who was it? Scooter X in chat was pointing out that the tablet, the OnePlus Pad, could have, well, it's 11-inch, like you said, Ron, 144 hertz display, seems to be fashioned very closely to the Oppo Pad 2, because the Oppo is in the same family. And it seems like lately a lot of their phones have very similar comparisons, or kind of, you can draw lines very easily between like Oppo phones over to the OnePlus phones in many ways. It's not like that's very new either. It's been that way for a number of years at this point. So it could be the same with the tablet. Check out the camera. Like that thing. There's no way that lens is that big. Like that's a chunker of a camera hole.
Is it the same? Is it the same unit as in the phone? Then?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I know whatever the multi lenses. Why would you do that on a tablet? Yeah, the Hasselblad.
I know that the design of the OnePlus 11 that I've seen online has. What are we looking at? Is this still? Oh, these are the renders of the tablet.
Yeah, it's the renders.
Those are unofficial. The
and
tablet.
they look like they don't have the actual camera part.
Yeah,
intentionally maybe.
But what we've seen of the OnePlus 11 is like a circular camera bump on the back. So maybe they're doing that. It sounds like it's just a single camera, and if so, then that's a single small camera inside of this large circular bump. But maybe it's done to just kind of have some design cohesion, that sort of thing. Or maybe there you go. Good call, Burke. But you can see it's kind of got that circular thing going. Yeah. So, yeah.
New look OnePlus coming at you.
Interesting. Well, I'm even more curious.
They're not the only ones making waves, right? There's other companies happening, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I honestly got to tell y'all, we got nothing to talk about.
Nothing.
Because the Nothing Phone 2 has been confirmed for a U.S. release in late 2023. So that's right. The follow-up to, I suppose, one of our most kind of like interesting stories of last year. The Nothing Phone 1 is coming out with a sequel, and actually in a really great, I found it actually a really great interview that Ray Wong over at Inverse did with Carl Pei. Carl Pei cited that the Phone 1 was not targeted at the U.S., but that Carl Pei noted that in terms of like their earbuds, they sold like a third of their earbuds in the U.S. So obviously the U.S. is a large priority for them. And we all kind of were like kind of curious about whether, Phone 1 would be released in the U.S. But instead, and now that kind of like Nothing as a company has had some time to kind of establish itself, kind of like test the waters and see how well, they as a hardware company can do, they're going to be making, the U.S. the company's top priority this year. Now they kind of have doubled, the size of the company, going from like just, a handful of engineers to, even more resources. They're going to focus on a premium phone and focus on software for the Phone 2 for the US. And the article is really interesting. It touches on a few things that we've already discussed. Like there's a bit of a callback, and I think Ray notes again that what he finds interesting is, of course, as we've mentioned on the show, and is kind of like we speculated a little bit about in terms of the IDC reports, that phones are kind of samesies. Like there's a little changes here and there, but I think Ray Wong gives in the article some credit to Nothing for trying to be a little different, to try to be eye-catching, to try to drive interest, whereas companies like Apple and Samsung will kind of give users, good solid standbys. There's not a lot of innovation. There's not a lot of niche phones. And so they're, Nothing seems to be playing in that space. So we'll see how it goes, and what the Nothing 2 phone will look like. Carl Pei goes a little bit into depth with Ray about what he kind of sees. There's not a lot of detail, but kind of like Nothing Phone 2 is premium, and Pei makes a really good kind of distinction of not calling it flagship. He considers the Phone 1 a flagship phone, even though we kind of, call it a mid-range phone. And he's trying to like just say that, flagship is the phone that they're putting out there and that they're putting all their resources on and they're excited about. That that's what flagship means to Pei. But he does want to make the distinction that the phone 2 will be premium. So presumably, maybe higher end hardware. And of course, like a strong emphasis on the software
A step up.
experience in that regard.
Yeah.
A step up. So I don't know. I would definitely read it. I kind of, I wasn't a big OnePlus fan in the past. So I've kind of been like, oh, this is very interesting. But I kind of like really appreciated the point of view. And again, interviews, take a grain of salt. Everyone always kind of sounds great interviews, but I found it like a really interesting kind of look into what Nothing is trying to accomplish.
Turns out they're trying to accomplish nothing this
Trying
year.
to accomplish nothing.
This is the year of
missed it.
nothing. Yeah.
It's the year of nothing.
The year of nothing.
Yeah, and I should also clarify the phone 1, or maybe you said this already, and it didn't register, but the phone 1 is getting a U.S. release with that kind of like
Yes. Sorry. Yes.
that beta.
Right.
So we are getting that in the U.S., but it's a
But it's not
a beta,
release.
right?
That's
it's
not a
exactly.
release.
It's like
Yeah.
a beta
$2.99
thing.
we went through it when they announced that it's a beta. They're disclaiming the heck out of it. That stuff like, oh, I don't know, YouTube or Google Wallet might not work. Like those
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
very specific things to call out in that thing. By the way, like
Yeah.
they know Google Wallet doesn't work, but you got to start somewhere, right? Like, and so like, given this and given that like the nature of the releases, I wouldn't expect phone 1 to come out. Like the phone 1 beta in the US is going to fuel the phone 2, right? Wouldn't
Yes,
that make more sense?
yes.
So
Yeah.
That's
right.
not precisely what happened. Is that they wanted to see how the phone 1 would do, and it's almost like a proving ground for the company in terms of like hardware and like being able to put out a phone that people would respond to. And now that they have more connections and resources, they can actually kind of go for gusto for the U.S. market, which is again their top priority and a huge market. So I think that's exactly how it played out.
Also-
or at least from the article, it seems like.
for both of you, but I know especially for Ron, because you have been very vocal of your appreciation for your Nothing ear stick. 1/3 of all of Nothing's sales. Confirmed that the U.S. market counted for 1/3 of all of Nothing earbud sales. So
what
they're
I want to know from
proving
there,
that
Jason,
they have some sort of like U.S.
Yeah.
gathering or following as a result.
what I would like to know, and I don't know if the data shows this, is that of the 1/3 of all their U.S. sales being ear sticks, what percentage of those are directly driven from this show? because
Most
I'll be
of
honest,
them.
like, a lot of people have posted to social and saying that they, based on our conversation, they purchased it, and I'm so glad to hear that people are happy with it.
Yeah. So when
but
they
like,
do that, are they then saying also like, I also love it, like it's working great for me? Blah, blah.
Yeah, like
good.
did we start a flywheel for Nothing? And hey, Nothing, can I get a phone 2 out of the deal?
Oh,
But
yeah, please. Like we helped, right?
we'll see.
We'll see about that. And then finally, there had been murmurings. I don't know if we talked about the potential of a Pixel Tablet Pro in
We
past
did.
episodes.
We mentioned
did we?
it. Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't recall if we had actually addressed those rumors. It had kind of been bubbling up for a little while now, and the reason why is because of the code naming. The Tangor, is it Tangor or Tangor? Tangor and the Tangor Pro. Those were the two code names that had been kind of paired up to the Pixel tablet. And so people were like, oh, well, then obviously there's two different versions, right? There's the regular Pixel tablet and then there's Pixel Tablet Pro. Why would it say Pro otherwise? Well, looks like Kuba Wojciechowski It's really hard to pronounce her last name. Sorry, Kuba. But Kuba has been behind many very big leaks in the past year, I would say. See her name coming up more and more and sharing new details about things and being accurate. Well, she shared new details about the Pixel tablet and basically shared that the Tangor refers to the version of the Pixel tablet that had the OG Tensor chip in it. The Tangor Pro would have the Tensor G2, and this leads to speculation that it's possible that the Pixel tablet was originally intended to release last year with the Tensor chip, but now, as we know, right, it's releasing this year. It's going to have the Tensor G2 chip, and probably at launch, we can imagine they're not going to release a version of this tablet that has an outdated, almost 2-year-old chip in it. I mean, maybe they do, but it's probably not going to be the kind of thing that we were wondering, which is, are they going to release a version of this tablet that's going to be supercharged and amazingly powerful and do all these things and do your dishes and whatever?
Wait, it's not going to do my dishes?
It's not going to do your dishes, Ron.
Come on.
Not this year.
I've already got one Google device in the kitchen not pulling its own weight. I got to worry about the tablet not doing it too.
Look, Google Home, you're in the kitchen, okay? Do kitchen things.
Clean up. Jeez. Can you put a dish away for once?
Seriously. You know what? Just put away the dishes that you use, Google Home, okay? Let's just start there. Anyways. So there you have it. No Pro version of the tablet. Still, there will be a Pixel tablet this year. That's something to be excited about. We have to wait until, another 6 months probably, but that's going to go by like that. Don't you worry about it. So there you go.
All right.
All right.
Cool.
Well, that is it.
That's it. Well, with that, we're going to take a break and thank our next sponsor, because this episode of All About Android is brought to you by Bitwarden. And Bitwarden is the only open source cross-platform password manager that can be used at home, at work, or on the go, and is trusted by millions, even by our very own Steve Gibson has switched over. And with Bitwarden, you can securely store credentials across personal and business worlds. And not only has Steve Gibson switched over, but listen up, folks, so have I. We've talked about password managers recently, and I made the jump and switched over to Bitwarden and could not be happier. Bitwarden is really the solution that we all need and that we're all looking for, because all of your data in Bitwarden, in the Bitwarden vault, is end-to-end encrypted, not just your passwords. That's including URLs for all the websites you have accounts for. Bitwarden doesn't track your data in the mobile apps, only crash reporting, and even that is removed in the F-Droid installation. Bitwarden is open source and invites anyone to review library implementations at any time on GitHub, and also to review the Bitwarden privacy policies at bitwarden.com/privacy. Protect your personal data and privacy with Bitwarden by adding security to your passwords with strong, randomly generated passwords for each account. Go a step further with the username generator and create unique usernames for each account as well, or even use any of the 5 integrated email alias services. Bitwarden offers email alias generation with simple login, a non-ADDI, Firefox Relay, Fastmail, and now DuckDuckGo. These services will allow you to create a masked email address, one that you could use for only one website, for example, and forwards any emails to your primary email account. This keeps your main email address out of the databases of the services and sites you sign up for. Really, really handy and useful. Bitwarden is a must-need for your business. It's fully customizable and adapts to your business needs. Their Teams organization option is $3 a month per user, and their enterprise organization plan is $5 a month per user. Share private data securely with coworkers across departments or the entire company. Individuals can use their basic free account forever for an unlimited number of passwords, or upgrade anytime to their premium account for less than $1 a month. The family organization option gives up to 6 users premium features for only $3.33 a month. And Bitwarden supports importing and migrating from many other programs too. And let me tell you, I'm not going to mention it, but I exported my passwords from another service and easily imported them into Bitwarden. The transition was seamless. I installed the Bitwarden app on my Pixel 7. It's fantastic. I love it's got an integration into the Google keyboard, so that when a password comes up, I can just tap the little Bitwarden icon and it comes right up. I can use biometrics to fingerprint unlock my vault. I feel so secure with Bitwarden. I'm so glad I made the jump. So much so that I paid for the family organization option. I'm getting my wife on board, getting the rest of my family on board, so that we're all safe and secure, thanks to the folks at Bitwarden. So really, really happy with Bitwarden, and want you to be too. Because, at Twit, we are fans of password managers, and Bitwarden is the only open source cross-platform password manager that can be used at home, on the go, or at work, and is trusted by millions of individuals, teams, and organizations worldwide. You can get started with a free trial of a Teams or Enterprise plan, or get started for free across all devices as an individual user at bitwarden.com/twit. That's bitwarden.com/twit. And we thank Bitwarden for being a fantastic option for keeping your passwords secure and protecting your private life. So thank you, Bitwarden. We thank you.
Thank you, Bitwarden. And now, speaking of amazing apps, it's time for app news.
Gotta let the bumper play. Gotta let the bumper play. Gotta let the bumper play this week. Gotta let the bumper play this week.
What?
Because last week I ran over the bumper, so
Oh,
I was like just holding on to like my notes real hard, just like don't go yet, don't go
Don't
yet,
do it. Don't do it.
don't do it, don't do it, don't do it.
Move. Go. Move.
Okay, well, in really interesting app news is an app called Artifact, which is being created by the co-founders of Instagram, Kevin Systrom and Mike Krieger, who, of course, sold Instagram to Facebook in 2012, but then less in 2018. And Artifact is super interesting. It's basically the idea of applying the success and the strategies of TikTok to news. So Artifact is a personalized news feed driven by artificial intelligence. And it is currently in private beta, though you can sign up for the waitlist at artifact.news. I did so this afternoon. And what's really interesting is that Artifact is trying to combine kind of a lot of different, things in a kind of like TikTok-y, Twitter-y niche. So there's, basically an idea of combining high quality news information. So Artifact will basically include news from certain publishers that they're trying to filter for, high quality news information for publishers that only adhere to, quote, editorial standards of quality, and then combining that with a recommendation algorithm based on posts and stories similar. So if you tap on a story, the idea is that Artifact will generate kind of like, or provide to you, similar stories and posts, not unlike what, TikTok does, where it tries to show you kind of like related content based on what you view. And then on top of that, what I think they also see as part of their, experience is also bringing the conversation into it. So that's kind of maybe where a kind of Twitter-esque, vibe comes in, because a lot of Twitter is not just, as a news, not just it being a news source, but also the conversation that happens around it. So the idea of Artifact is to combine all of these things, throw in a whole bunch of, ML, and then to create basically TikTok for news, which is like a very kind of like simplistic way of like phrasing it, but that's kind of where we're at. And, it is, using, what is really interesting is that kind of part of what is making this work is the Google invented Transformer, which is a utility that allows a system to understand language. And TIL, Transformer, which again is this Google invented kind of like system, is the T in Chat GPT. So again, this is kind of playing off the technology that are currently fueling the AI ML zeitgeist. And yeah, so that they have that cooking. It is in private beta. It's, still in the works. And, there's all kinds of things, all kinds of questions that have yet to be answered. What's the business model? What is the end goal of this going to be? But, you can try and join the beta, and they're trying to like admit people as fast as they can. And see what it is, but kind of very interesting things coming, very interesting machine learning driven things coming from the co-founders of Instagram. So yeah, keep an eye for that. If maybe you feel like you have a Twitter-sized hole in your internet heart right now, and you wanted to maybe fill it up with something, a little ML. So
yeah, do you think that's what this is really going to end up being, kind of like a replacement or a potential replacement for, because I definitely have used Twitter over the years as kind of a news, a way to tap into news in a way that is not me visiting a news site and reading all of their stories from the front page or whatever. It's like open up Twitter and see what people are reacting to right now, and then I know what the big stories are right now, or going to the trending tab and finding the news, stories from there, and that's how I look into that. Do you think that's kind of what this is aiming to do better, is like a replacement for, let's say, Twitter as a news source?
It really does feel like it, especially they really do emphasize that they're trying to only serve news from publishers that are high quality, and that's regardless of political spectrum.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you define high quality? Blah, blah,
but
blah.
It does seem that Systrom and Krieger are opinionated on the idea that, they as a company will need to step in when it comes to moderating for safety and, ethics and, social responsibility. So that's there, have it as you will. And I do think it would be kind of, maybe if you're the kind of person that's kind of jumping off the bird side, it does feel like it's positioned and trying to be that, right? And there is a kind of feed where there's going to be curated postings, which is kind of like, part of like maybe more of a discovery kind of thing, right? And then there's more hey, here are posts from people that you follow. So I do think so. I'm super interested in that regard because I think that, discovery and also the kind of like emphasis on news is something that's less, like a stream of news that is a little bit kind of outside maybe necessarily what I might be following directly in terms of like people that I follow on Mastodon or whatever. I do think that is missing from like by not having Twitter, right? It's discovering, people and voices and like content that you might not necessarily, have discovered on your own, and to kind of avoid the kind of echo chamberiness in a sense. So I don't know. I think that could be it, especially, if they have a good algorithm, because that's kind of what made TikTok, right? Is their recommendation and the virality that could be generated by a really good, recommendation system. So yeah.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
What then is different between this and Google News?
I don't know.
No, I mean, it's not Google, right? It's
That's a good point.
Right. It's a new player, but to your point, this is way more of a Google. I agree with you. It's a Google News competitor more so than a Twitter.
Really
competitor.
seems to be that way to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
because
maybe there's a social aspect that is missing from Google News. But what you get out of Google News is definitely sourced by the zeitgeist, but sourced by the people using it, and it has a personalization aspect of it too. Like these are stories that are important to you.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, Google News is. I mean, as we all know, it's 100% driven by your own search. Like I see a direct correlation within hours of a search for something with a news item popping up in my Google News feed. Mm-hmm. Like it is the only thing that comes close to the quickness and responsiveness is how quickly I see an ad in Instagram based on something I talked about, like verbally. Like I'll talk about Fender guitars and then I'll see an ad for Fender guitars in like 3 hours. But and yeah, because Facebook and Meta, they're not listening to it on our phones at all. Yeah. But
I think this guy over here wants to buy a Fender guitar. Here, serve him a bunch of ads.
Exactly.
Go.
But that said, it does work because then I'll see ads. I'll be like, ooh, and I'll buy it. But no, but the Google News feed is absolutely personalized to me. I guess where you could differentiate from that. And what I'm curious about Artifact is like, what is the AI? What is feeding the AI? Because I do think that there is a crossroad between the Twitter as a news service, as a curated news service by people I trust, versus a news feed based off my search and what Google thinks my interests are.
Yeah,
right? Because I use Twitter as a news feed because I followed, Jason, I follow you, and I now follow you. I follow Tom Merritt, I follow other, other great, amazing people in the tech space, and they post interesting stuff that is, they used to post things that I found interesting. To that is, I use it. I rely more on Google News now than Twitter as a news source. But back in the day when I did, it was the idea of like, here is a group of several hundred people who I know and trust and think that if they find something interesting enough to post to Twitter, I also will find it interesting. Google can't know that. Mm-hmm. Or at least currently doesn't know it.
They gave up on their social, Google Plus.
Exactly,
they could have, but they gave up on that. It also actually reminds me of Nuzzle, right? Like that was what you're describing. Nuzzle was how I did exactly that. Rest in peace. I guess
Didn't
now
Google
it's
buy
part
Nuzzle?
of. Yes, and I
so-
don't know if it's still part of Blue or if they got rid of that or what, because I don't subscribe.
Oh, no,
to
Twitter
Blue.
bought it, right?
Sorry, no. Did I say Google? Twitter bought it, and it was part of Blue, and I don't know that it's still part of Blue in the Musk era. I honestly have no idea, but
and actually, that's something really interesting. It's like how. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. May 21. They say Twitter is killing Nuzzle. So.
Oh.
Well, they bought Nuzzle, they killed it, but then they brought back core functionality from it later with the launch of Twitter Blue. It was one of their main selling points was, and now you can see what what the people you respect or you follow are sharing, the news stories that matter most to them. And it was obvious that was like, okay, they took the sauce from Nuzzle and put it in Twitter Blue. It wasn't as fully featured as Nuzzle was. And I don't know if that part of the service is gone now, but
in the Twitter Blue offering, now it does say top articles is a shortcut to the most shared articles of your network. This feature automatically lists most shared articles for people you know. So it's still in there.
Yeah, it's still in there. which would be
So-
maybe the only reason I would ever subscribe to Twitter Blue, but obviously it's not important enough for me to have done that. What were you going to say, Wynn?
Oh, sorry. So, kind of to Ron's point about how maybe the artifact algorithm might differentiate from Google News, and I have no idea how the Google News algorithm works, by the way. But something else that they did mention, Sister Ben Krieger mentioned, is that they're going to focus on the amount of time that you read something rather than just straight up clicks. So I think there is a desire to kind of look for deeper kind of interest rather than just kind of like a shallow, like, hey, you clicked on this, this, and that. You must like this and this and that.
Gosh, I
hey,
hope
you
so.
bought that
Yeah.
thing, so you must want to buy 15,000 more of that thing. So I'm just going to serve you more of the same thing, even though it's not necessary. I think that there is a sense that they're trying to take certain lessons from, current competitors and maybe going for more depth. And I do think, now thinking about it, the conversation is going to be a big deal, because I think not just, so what I liked Twitter for was not just, seeing what people that I trust and respected posted and shared, but also their personal kind of like takes on it, whether that was like a journalist sharing an article on Ukraine and sharing kind of like related kind of anecdotes and experiences and their perspective on it, kind of to add context, flavor, and also sometimes counterpoints to things. So I think that also, that kind of conversational thing might be an advantage over Google News, because at the same time, as you are reading and consuming things that people you trust present to you, you also are taking in some of their, kind of additional, opinions and takes, and kind of maybe even like, changes in the stream of the conversation or in the story, or things that might follow up on, which I do think is genuinely interesting to see, not just the news, but what people are saying about the news. So
Oh yeah, for sure.
maybe that's a difference.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Google News definitely does not show that to you. It might surface a lot of the same stories, but it doesn't show you what others feel about it. If that has a social, if Artifact has a social component to it, that's got to be a big part of it, right? I care about the people, that I follow, their opinion on these things. That's why I want to read this news, because they all said that it was important enough to read. So yeah, interesting. I'm certainly curious.
I signed up
to get in. I signed up for the wait list.
too.
They ask you to
Exactly.
use your phone number, and then you get a
Which I
text
didn't like.
message that says, "All right, we'll let you know soon." So if you feel comfortable giving your phone number, that's kind of one strange thing about that. But there you go.
Yep.
Artifact. And real quick, and just full disclosure, Ron is a Marvel employee, but
Indeed.
we have talked about this game in the past, Marvel Snap. It's the collectible card game that we showed off when it first launched, probably like a
October.
year ago? Was it?
No, it was October. I
Really?
know, it feels, crazy
Wow.
enough. It was only been out since October.
Well, what's interesting to me, and one of the questions I had for you is, it seems like it's been really, like it's done really well. It seems like it has a very active community of people.
It very much does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Super popular. Anyways, they announced a few months ago they were going to be getting a new battle mode. So if you like this game now, it's actually today it launched with a new battle mode, so you can play against your friends. You're betting on your health. So you're putting your health on the line, and you each start with 10 health. The winner wins the wagered health as the damage. You use the same deck throughout the entire match. So what that does is it introduces kind of like as a player, you're kind of predicting your opponent's moves, because the deck is not so vast that you don't know what they have after a couple of rounds. You kind of know what's there. So then you kind of have to compartmentalize and understand, all right, well, if I know what's there and they haven't played this yet, then they have this, and that means I'm not going to play this, or whatever the case may be. It just intensifies the gameplay strategy approach. And matches last around 20 minutes. Sounds pretty cool. Haven't played it myself, but
I gotta say it's addictive. I mean, and yeah, like you mentioned, I do my day job. I do work for Marvel, but in a completely different group than the video games group. And in fact, the people who make Snap is a separate company, right? So like it's several steps removed from me. So I'm purely speaking as a fan and as someone who plays the game. It's a ton of fun. I mean, it is like the if you like Marvel and you like comics and the movies, there's so many characters and so many little hidden Easter eggs and things like that. But the games are fast. They happen in like 2 to 4 minutes most. You know, like the joke now is it's taken over the toilet basically. But it's a ton of fun. And this battle mode, like, and it's funny because it went into beta last year, like in the summer or spring, and then it launched officially in October. And since October, like, their websites have cropped up and I see so many people talking about it. And like the way the game works before today was that you just got matched with a random other player. So I never knew who, you know, we see their username, but I don't know who they are. They could be anybody in the world.
Right.
Now a battle mode, me and some of my coworkers, some of my friends outside of work all play it. And so we can actually like, okay, cool, let's play
that's
together.
cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
and like actually be able to play with your friends, and to your point, like, you know, the leveraging the deck strategies and knowing what people have and knowing what cards and how they play them, it's just a ton of fun. And so like this is a big deal, and this is, you know, the community is super excited about it. So it was fun to see that come out. You know, again as a fan, like really excited for it. So so definitely check it out. The great thing about it too is that it is free to download, it is free to play. There are ways to spend money, to buy credits, to do stuff and stuff like that, but you don't need to do. You could play 100% free for the rest of your life. I don't know about the rest of your life, but as of right now, you can play 100% free and not drop a dime on this game and still get the same experience as someone who drops hundreds of dollars on it. So, which I really like. I like that aspect of it. So.
Yeah. Interesting. Awesome. Well, it is a fun game. I have not played this new update, but I will definitely check it out. Marvel Snap, check it out for yourself. On the potty or not on the potty, it's really up to you.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah,
we're all looking for ways to pass the time. And in fact, that's a good segue, because our good friend J.R. Raphael is here this week with another Android intelligence tip, and it got a little bit of a smart search assistant at hand. So let's hear what JR's got for us that we possibly could use on the potty.
Hey gang, so last week we talked about a cool little search tool called Swirl. Swirl, remember that? It's the thing that lets you see results from a whole bunch of different sites side by side together at the same time, kind of like TweetDeck for search, as Jason astutely observed. Well, this week, continuing on that same theme, I want to introduce you to another really useful off the beaten path search site. And this one, man, this one is something you are definitely going to want to hang on to for future reference. It's a handy little something called Andi. Andi with an I at the end. It's kind of like a mashup of an AI chatbot, like a ChatGPT, and a more traditional search service like Google or Yahoo or Alta Vista or whatever you prefer. At its core, Andi lets you find any info you need by asking simple questions or typing in regular old search queries. And it shows you answers both in a simple conversational form and in a more standard scrolling stream of regular web results. Now that's all well and good, but let me tell you, that is just scratching the surface here. There's a lot to say about this tool, about Andi, and what it can do for you. I wrote a whole in-depth profile of the startup behind it over at Fast Company the other day if you're interested in more of the backstory and the tech behind the site's unconventional search setup. But today I want to focus on one super specific, really subtle feature that Andi's got tucked away into its virtual corners, and that is a better way to read any old article that you happen to run into anywhere on this wide, wild internet of ours. Look, we're not going to name any names, we're not going to point any fingers, but let's just say certain websites, certain publications out there have a tendency of overloading their pages, you know, like with a god-awful stream of over-the-top ads, pop-up videos, all sorts of obnoxious nonsense that no one wants, and that makes it really unpleasant to read what you went there to read. Well, check this out. Anytime you find any article within Andi, whether just incidentally during some random search or because you were searching specifically for its headline or URL to find it, Andi will put a little option in the corner of that article's card, right in its search results, called Read. Yeah. Can you see where this is going? Click or tap that option, and hoo boy, would you look at that. Andi pulls up the entire article right then and there in the search results in a super stripped down, really nicely formatted, and oh yes, completely ad-free view. Not bad, right? Works pretty much anywhere too with any publicly accessible article on the internets. Now, the whole thing does raise some slightly prickly questions about rights and all that fun stuff, and I'm sure publishers aren't going to be too thrilled about it if and when it comes to their attention. But for now, at least, man, it is just a much nicer way to read any article anywhere on the web without all the usual clutter and annoying distractions. You can check out Andi for yourself and give it a whirl at andisearch.com. And again, that's Andi with an I, A-N-D-I, search.com. The entire site's ad-free. It doesn't collect any manner of data or even log any of your activity. The company behind it says it's going to launch some premium plans and enterprise search products eventually to help pay the bills. The founders tell me they very much intend to keep the core search service completely free and free from ads indefinitely. And hey, while you're hopping around the web, remember, you can find out about all sorts of awesome new resources and tech tricks like this each and every week by signing up for my Android Intelligence newsletter. You'll get 3 new things to try in your inbox every Friday, along with plenty of other fun surprises. Gallop on over to androidintel.net/twit to get in on the action if you haven't already. That site again is androidintel.net/twit. Well, happy galloping, my fellow cowpoke. I'll see you back here for even more digital sleuthing next week.
I need to go get my coconuts. Do the,
Yes.
do the old Holy Grail kind of galloping.
Yes.
I got to say that Andi thing, it seems very interesting, and it actually reminded me of a very specific website and app that I use that basically does the same thing, but for recipes. It's called Just the Recipe, and you can see that at justtherecipe.com, where you can, in this case, you can copy and paste any recipe URL. And if you've ever been to a recipe online, it's almost worse than news. It's horrible.
Oh, I hate it.
Not only all the banner ads and all the video ads and stuff like that, but all the prologue and nonsense before you actually get to the gosh darn recipe.
Because they know in all that scrolling, you're just going to get all those pop-ups that appear every 5 seconds.
Also between the recipe
blah, blah, blah,
sections.
Yeah, it's brutal. But so justtherecipe.com, you go in and you copy and paste a URL to any recipe, and it parses the whole page and just pulls the recipe and gives you a clean, clutter-free view. I put in the link, Burke, if you want to pull it up to show our video viewers what the website looks like. But it gives you a clean recipe, and you can sit and it's small amount to pay for it. Support your devs. I pay for it, a couple of bucks or something like that, and it allows you to keep a library of your recipes and all stuff like that. It is just very simple and very clutter-free. And it's not. I like how it says no ads, no life stories, which is pretty good. But so JR's tip of Andi doing that for search reminded me of this, which is basically doing it for recipes, which I feel like there definitely is a trend for a clutter-free internet, and I hope whatever Web 3, Web 4, or whatever Internet 2 is, or whatever, we can be clutter-free, because that's what I want. So.
Here's 5 paragraphs on why we chose russet potatoes.
Yeah.
Before we ever, and all the other ingredients in their own little thing, and why?
I just get so frustrated. I just get so frustrated because I've been on record saying that, like, I support the digital advertising ecosystem because it helps, fund and pay for content creation. As a content creator myself for 20 plus years, it has been a key lifeblood, as was Amazon Associates, which now is an echo of its former self, as was podcast advertising, which has gone through the ringer, right? Like, it seems like all these efforts to monetize continue to squeeze out the content creator and ultimately give a negative experience to the content, absorber, the content, the target, whoever's, enjoying the content. It's just incredibly frustrating. And I do hope we can figure out another model to it, because Lord knows it's got to the point where there's some websites I just don't go to anymore because I can't, nothing drives me more crazy than having a page come up and then going to click a link on the page, but the link moves because
right at the wrong. I hate that.
Or you're trying to scroll and then it's loading it
it's
more.
The worst.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Such a nightmare.
I hope we can declutter in the future. So.
I hope that we can too. All right. Well, I hope that we can read some of your feedback, and I know that we can up next. That's coming up, your feedback. AAA at twit.tv 347 show AAA. I had to go into the Google Voice mailbox for that number and send out a random text to show Google that this phone number is still active. It's still out there. If you want to leave us a voicemail, you can. But remember, keep it short. I get these voicemail, like I got a voicemail today. I want to say it was like 4 minutes or something. I'm like, we just can't play a 4-minute voicemail on the show. So it doesn't matter how awesome. And I'll be honest, I'm probably not going to take the time to like cut it down like in an audio software, So there you go. So keep it short and succinct, and we will play it. Wynn, you've got the first one.
Yeah, our first mail tonight is from Tom from NYC. I need some help from the Android faithful. During the Christmas season, I somehow butt dialed my local 555-1212 4 times. I never thought about it so much until I opened my bill today. Each of those calls was to directory assistance and was $2.99 each. With taxes and fees, 4 20-second calls to directory service was $14.50. Let's face it, who calls directory assistance these days?
True.
I've been searching both my carrier's website and the universe for how to prevent my phone from dialing a number, and I'm getting nowhere. Has anyone made this mistake? And how would I go about preventing my phone from dialing such numbers? Any help is appreciated by my wallet. Tom from NYC.
How do we prevent a phone from dialing a number? Like, I was like, this is something that I've never thought of before.
You can block a number, can't you?
But that blocks on the incoming. That doesn't block on the outgoing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I did randomly find right before the show, and I just popped it in, is that, so this is a Xiaomi thing, so not, helpful to any of us on the show or to Tom because we can't get Xiaomi phones. So Xiaomi, as an example, though, has a thing called fixed dialing numbers where you can go into settings, advanced settings, presumably on the Xiaomi software, and actually block an outgoing call. So the answer might be that there might be a OEM specific feature that you might have on your flavor of Android, but
I think you can do this on Google Fi too, maybe.
Oh, really?
I feel like.
Oh.
Outgoing? Because I feel like this is a feature I've never, in my many years of doing Android stuff, considered. Like, I want to prevent my phone from making a call to this certain number. It's just not something I've ever thought of. So I wonder how many people are in that situation.
If we had that feature in the phone app, I could think of about 6 people I would like to block myself from calling.
There might be parental control too, maybe. I don't know if maybe some flavors of parental control allow you to do that because presumably you don't, like if you, I don't know, give a smartphone to your kid, maybe, never mind, I can't, you'd want them to be able to call like the important numbers.
Yeah. Or maybe, I think maybe I'm reading this question wrong because I was thrown off by the, how would I go from preventing my phone from dialing such numbers? My thought was, how do I get my phone to not dial certain numbers? Maybe the question actually is, how do I get my phone to not butt dial?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how can I have my phone in my pocket and have it not dial numbers? That's probably actually, now that I think about it, the question. And, if it's locked, it wouldn't call, right? Like, it doesn't make call. Other than maybe emergency services, and you probably don't want that. But
when it's locked, you can't do anything.
Well, but even when it's locked, you can get to, like, I've had it where I've pulled my phone out of my pocket and it's on that like emergency dial screen, because even on the lock screen, there are ways
turn that off
to get
that. That's how.
Oh, do you disable it?
I don't. Well, there's a couple. There's a couple of options, at least I know, on Google phones.
I'm trying to not unlock by looking at it and see.
I don't do that
so
one.
like I just swiped up on my lock screen and you see down at the bottom there's that emergency button. If I tap that, follow me.
Don't. What are you doing?
It goes here.
Don't do that.
And okay, good.
Wait. I think I saw.
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that takes me through to the ability to call emergency services, and I don't know that you can disable that. But another way to prevent butt dials is to put your phone in your front pocket. There you go.
Not true.
Is there an equivalent to?
But I understand the joke.
Ha! It wasn't a very funny joke.
I'm currently going through a rabbit hole of the growth in cost of 555-1212. Because there's a whole bunch of articles in 2001 about how it increased the price to $1.25 per call. And then in 2007, it went up to $1.99. And then as of February 27, 2021, it went up to $2.99 per call. So, because I was like, did it always cost $3 to call information? Because I used to call it a lot as a kid. Like you would just call any area code and ask for information, try to track somebody down, right?
Yeah.
No, apparently the growth of information services over the last 20 years has been a steady increase. So
I mean, who's using it? So yeah, they have got to charge.
But I used to use it all the time.
Yeah, well,
seriously.
I remember using it.
Like, oh man.
Yeah.
I remember if you knew where somebody lived, just called information and just ask them, what's their phone number, and you got it. It's crazy.
I did not know this was a thing until reading this email. I really did not.
No, you didn't know about 555-1212.
Never.
I mean,
never.
It's a relic of days gone by. It really is in this modern age. Like, who would ever dial 555-1212? Someone must. Like, there must be someone on staff that answers that call because they're charging for the service. Who is it? Scooter X, of course, in chat shared a link to show that as of January 11th, 2023, AT&T stops offering directory assistance. So,
411. Okay, so it's the same.
Yeah, it's 411.
Yeah, it's same.
Okay, Mubby.
Mm-hmm. I also found an article in the New York Times from 1973 about how the phone company moved the people who answer the phone from 555-1212 out of Manhattan and into other parts of New York. So it says, now callers from Greenwich Village seeking telephone numbers of the 5 boroughs of New York may connect someone in Rome, Utica, or Elmira, New York, or Valley Stream, Hempstead, or Riverhead on Long Island.
Super relevant.
And these locations are 7 remote bureaus outside New York City that employ 400 telephone operators that handle directory assistant calls for the 212 area code. Think about that.
4 operators.
400.
Or 400
operators.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Wow.
And it said about 30 of the older bureaus remain in New York City itself. A total of 2,200 employees are employed at these bureaus. So at one point in time, there were over 2,000 people whose job it was to sit in a room and answer a phone and tell you what the phone number of the Chinese food restaurant that you're trying to call is, or track someone down for you, or whatever it might be. 2,000 people.
But wait, how did they supply this information without computers?
They looked it up.
In
Maybe
what?
they had computers. I
In
don't
a
know.
book?
It doesn't say. Yeah.
In 75?
Big phone book.
73. Yeah.
Yeah, big phone book.
Maybe they did.
It doesn't say they they're talking about the employment, they're talking about race,
Maybe it's
training.
A secret sauce.
It doesn't say.
You'll never know.
If the callers give us enough basic information, we can usually find a number for them.
Yeah.
I think they're literally
Microfiche.
they literally sat with phone books. Yeah.
Cousin of John. Gopher, Archie. There's plenty of ways back in the 1970s. Microfiche, I like that.
That's fascinating.
That is fascinating. Don't know if we've answered your question, but it's fun fodder.
It was a good journey.
Sorry,
It's about the friends we made along the way.
Yes.
Okay, our next email is from friend Russell in Brisbane, Australia, who says, I'm a longtime Android user, had a ViewSonic tab with Cyanogen mod. It was great before the iPad came out. And ruined
wow.
things. Wow. As well as a Xiaomi Mi Max and a Redmi, as well as a few Pixels after coming across from Windows Phone, RIP. As an owner of one of the older Sony Walkmans running Android 9, I bought it, and not my phone, for the audio processor that works with my Sony XM3 headphones. Although, like all audio things, I'm sure it's all marketing. It does have a cool screensaver and case that makes it look like a vintage Walkman playing a tape through. And he sent us a picture of what that looks like.
Oh,
It
I
was very
forgot
cool.
to attach that.
Yeah, sorry, no worries. I also want to mention that the Cat ruggedized phones. Hey, Ron. I looked at one of those for the longest time, but ended up going with a Pixel 5 with an FLIR USB-C camera and haven't looked back since. I'm now on a Pixel 7 Pro. As the Cat seemed the generation behind, I always want the newest. Anyway, this brings me to my actual question. I want to film a more stable video with my Pixel 7 Pro, and I've been looking at the DJI gimbals, but it seems like their features are limited when not running on iOS. Do you have a suggestion for a good and reasonably priced Android-compatible gimbal? And I feel like this is a Burke question, to be honest with you. I know nothing about gimbals.
There are Android-compatible gimbals, but I don't know what they are. And the best ones do run on iOS, I think.
Right. How fully featured are they? That's, I think, the question. Yeah, the big question.
all the big. I mean, so I've looked at DJI ones. I've looked at Z. So Chinese company starts with a Z, and they do have Android apps. They suck. At least last I checked, 2-3 years ago, they suck. I actually got an iPod, like when they still had them out of desperation. But yeah, Android apps, it might just be because talking to hardware is really hard on Android. They're not
You
great.
could use an analog gimbal.
Yeah, that's totally an option. Maybe things are better. I doubt it, but I would not spend a lot of money on something and count on the Android app for gimbals. My bad. I wish it was different.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking into some of the DJI ones, and of course, Russell, you pointed out that the DJI gimbals that you were looking in were feature limited when compared to their iOS counterpart. I did encounter the DJI Pocket 2 and read a couple of reviews and everything, and no one really, even on some Android sites. I think Android Authority did a review of the Pocket 2. Actually, they did. I linked to it.
Oh wait, I know who would know this answer, but he's not here. Ant.
Oh yeah, Ant would probably know. Yeah, for sure. Or maybe he would. Yeah. Well,
And if
because he
you're
has an
listening-
Android device, so he probably would. Anyways, the Pocket 2 seemed pretty feature full. I didn't really see any knocks on it for being incapable compared to iOS. So that's a positive. The negative of that is it's $349. So it's not an inexpensive gimbal, but I don't know what is reasonable in the world of gimbals. Is that a reasonable price? That seems kind of expensive to me. But,
They're all over the place, no matter what they are.
Yeah.
I mean, you go on to Amazon, you can find like a $50 gimbal, but you're probably going to get a $50 gimbal out of it. It's probably not going to be very good, especially on Android.
I actually bought my sister the Pocket 2 to chase around my little niece when she got mobile. It's not bad. I mean, the unit itself as a piece of DJI hardware is nice, but I don't think I was blown away. I mean, the Android integration is fine. I don't think I was blown away by it. And a lot of the little things that are nice is like using the phone as a controller.
Yeah.
Again, a little, but again, I didn't use it that much. I used it for like a half an hour, and then she moves around so much. By the time it took us to get the Pocket 2, we're just like, okay, pull out your pixels, kind of thing. So I don't have a long-term review of it, but it's not bad, but it is expensive, real expensive.
Yeah, it is pricey. So there you go, Russell. I hope that's helpful. Today's the day of reading emails, and we can't be much help, but we enjoy reading them nonetheless. Does that apply to our email of the week? I don't know. Let's find out. Robert wrote in to say, I was listening to episode 613 with Father Robert, and you guys spoke briefly towards the end about authenticators. I've been using the Google Authenticator for a while. It works fine. It's offline, but it gets the job done. My work provides a work phone. It's an S10, and my personal is an S22 Ultra. I had a dodgy situation when upgrading to the S22. I turned in my old phone, and as I wiped it, I realized that I also wiped my password manager. After that incident, I made sure that this would not happen in the future. So I grabbed an old phone in a drawer, set it up again, and I have it as a spare chat phone and streaming phone next to my computer. It also has the Authenticator app with a backup of my codes. Then I realized that my work phone was pretty secure because of how the company manages the phone. So I have Google Authenticator on all 3 phones, 1 in a drawer and 2 that I always have with me. So every time I set up a new code or 2FA for an account, it doesn't matter if I grab my work phone or my personal phone. When I require the code and I realize that I'm using my work phone to send that particular code up, what I do is at that moment, I usually transfer the account to my personal phone. Man, this sounds so confusing. This kind of keeps me one authentication code behind, which I don't think is a big deal, as most of the time I do it on both. Pretty much all authenticators let you export accounts, and I do this about once a month or whenever I set up a new account, which is not that often. And yes, I do write it on a piece of paper, which I lost already. I love that last sentence. Had to keep that in there. So one way to go about this is just have Authenticator apps on 3 different phones that you manage and maintain on a regular basis, and then you'll never lose access because you have it on multiple phones. That's great if you've got multiple phones. that's a pretty good approach. I don't know how that really ties in with the discussion with Father Robert. Were you guys talking about kind of losing access to authenticator information? Oh, can't hear you, Ron.
Sorry, I was muted.
Yep.
Whenever I feel like we are in a spot where we started talking about authenticators and authenticators a couple of weeks ago, and I feel like this conversation has extended for weeks on to months because people keep writing in, chiming in, and Father Robert was chiming in with his latest with his opinion on the topic, and we were talking about that. So that's where it came from.
That's how it works on this show. It seems like a theme happens, and we're talking about it for like 3 months in feedback every couple of weeks. So there you go. I thought it was an interesting story. Thank you for writing in, Robert, and congratulations for being the email of the week. All right, with that, we have reached the end of this episode of All About Android. Always a lot of fun. Thank you so much for watching and listening and joining us for all of this Android chit-chat. Wynn, what do you want to leave people with?
Yes, I am an Android dev. That is my day job, and I occasionally talk about Android things, and you can find my Android things at randomlytyping.com. And generally, I am in social places at Queen Code Monkey. Find me there. And yeah, that's about it.
And that's that. Thank you, Wynn. Good to see you. And what about you, Ron? What you got?
Yes, I'm trying to drive Burke crazy by dropping in a link to plug right
at the last minute. You can't do that.
Take that.
Breaking news link.
Yes. But so as Jason mentioned earlier, I do work at Marvel by day. Please go to marvel.com. You can check out all the fun stuff we're doing over there. Also, Scorebit. If you're into pinball, check out Scorebit in the Google Play Store. We got a fun mobile app to keep track of your pinball scores. But I also podcast every now and then with my good buddies over at iFanboy. And last week, our monthly Media Splode came out where we caught up on what we've been watching since November. A lot of good movie and TV conversation. Talked about Andor, talked about Avatar, talk about Babylon, talked about the menu, like a lot of great stuff that came, the Fablemans, a lot of cool stuff. So if you're into TV, Cobra Kai, the last season Cobra Kai. So if you like TV and film, go to ifanboy.com or search for iFanboy in your favorite podcast catcher and find the Media Splode episode. You can hear me Babylon with two of my best friends for about an hour. So there you go.
I really enjoyed the menu, by the way.
I mean, I enjoyed the menu but it also was like, oh, talk about feeling seen.
Yeah, ouch.
You know,
yes.
It was like, oh, man.
Totally. No, I mean, I worked in the restaurant industry for quite a while, and it was like, it was kind of painful to watch. But
they were ripping on in Silicon Valley and everything.
Yeah, they got everybody.
It was harsh.
It was well done.
Yeah, so, very worth the watch, especially if you like food. And you've got any sort of foodie.
Totally.
What's really interesting is I don't know how much you dug into it, Jason, but and I talk about this in the podcast. One of the second unit directors was one of the guys who worked on the David Chang shows on Netflix.
Okay.
So all of the shots of the food were done by a crew that specialized in doing food photography for cooking shows and food shows, right? And like,
it was really well done. Yeah.
Yeah. Once I found that, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
right?
makes perfect sense.
And they ripped on foodies too.
Oh yeah.
Everything. That's why I was saying talk about being seen.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nicholas Holt's character up to a point, I was like, oh, this is really uncomfortable for me watching this.
Totally. Yes, it was so to the bone.
Well, y'all should watch that, but only once you're done listening or watching listening to this. Thank you to J.R. Rayfield, AndroidIntelligence.com. Keep them coming, man. Appreciate it. And I love that, like, he did a random search. He told me this anyways. He said he did a random search about the hosts on All About Android, and it pulled up his article. Like, it was an interview that I did with him, or he did with me, like, I don't know how many years ago. It's weird that was the thing that it pulled back. I don't know if it had anything to do with his own history with it, but he seemed to say that it didn't. So very interesting. But anyways, JR, keep it up. Big thanks to Victor. Big thanks to Burke for helping out behind the scenes. Without you guys doing what you do, we wouldn't have a show to put out. So thank you. You can find me at Jason Howell on Twitter, twit.social/@Jason Howell on Mastodon. Never gets easier.
Just look at your low third.
I know. That's what I ultimately had to do. And every Thursday, twit.tv/TNW for Tech News Weekly. Also, don't forget, we have Club Twit. That's our subscription tier. So if you like our shows and you want to support us even more than just watching our shows with ads, you can subscribe to all of our content, and then we remove the ads for you. We also give you access to a whole lot of extra content that you can't get outside of the club. That's our Twit Plus podcast feed. And then we have a members-only Discord, which is insane fun as well. $7 a month. You can pay for a full year, $84 per year. And it really does help us out, especially right now as some of the sponsorships have kind of dipped down. Recession's impacting a lot of different things right now. The ad economy and podcasting is definitely one of those things. So the club is really helping us out. Twit.tv/clubtwit. But as for this show, not really much else to say other than twit.tv/AAA. If you want to go there, you can see our show notes for today's episode, and all of our episodes are lined up there. You can subscribe, audio, video, everything you need to know about the show, including some really cute pictures of us on set, are at twit.tv/AAA. Thank you so very much for watching and listening each and every week, and we'll see you next time on All About Android. Bye, everybody.
Hey, I know you're super busy, so I won't keep you long, but I wanted to tell you about a show here on the Twit network called Tech News Weekly. You are a busy person, and during your week, you may want to learn about all the tech news that's fit to, well, say, not print, here on Twit. It's Tech News Weekly. Me, Micah Sargent, my co-host, Jason Howell. We talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news, and we love the opportunity to get to share those stories with you and let the people who wrote them or broke them share them as well. So I hope you check it out every Thursday right here on Twit.